popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Media popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault. What is up, Little Biscuits and Sun-Dried Tomatoes? It's your boy, Eddie Collins.
Guys, it's Justin Brown.
And we are Medium Popcorn, but you already knew that. And we were about to spoil a movie, a very, very special movie. We're doing documentaries again. It's been a while, Justin. It's been a while.
Time, baby.
And folks, if you loved our In Plain Sight review, I'm not trying to like hype this up, but if you love that review, In Plain Sight, the Netflix docu series, you will probably enjoy this recap of one of the craziest documentaries I've seen in a while, called The Imposter. And to help us break it down, Jen Schaefer from the Crude Acts podcast. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're surviving and maintaining.
We're living.
Yeah, I mean, Justin might be a little bit more strict than I am because he actually has kids. Yeah,
I'm stoked to talk about this case, the documentary and the case itself, because they're both just kind of, it's unexpected and it's crazy and we have a lot to talk about.
It's special.
It's insane. Because I had no idea what this movie was about. Lluvia just put it on the list after she put you as our guest, and we're incredibly excited about that. But the log line reads, a documentary centered on a young man in Spain who claims to be a grieving Texas family, 16-year-old son who's been missing for 3 years. Now, here's the thing, folks. You hear that, you're like, oh, Spain, right? So he must be Spaniard, probably, like this imposter. Nope. He is French and he's half Nigerian, and it's so fucking crazy. Like, and this takes place in 1997. Like this documentary, for the most part.
And the guy looks like Mickey Rourke from today. Like, what is going on with his face? He looks wild.
Well, Jen, my first.
No, I was just blown away at, when I saw it, when, you read the log line, I thought it was going to be a documentary about this missing boy and this missing boy's family. And so it starts off with that, and you think, and your heart's starting to go out to this family, and then it cuts to this guy. And like you said, it's like, I was like, okay.
Phone booth.
In a phone booth, right? And this kid that's missing is this blonde hair, blue eye boy. And then you got Pedro Pascal over here trying to say he's him. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is weird.
Well, that's what's so crazy about this movie, because as I'm watching, I'm like, yo, is this a real life orphan? And not even just the first orphan. I'm talking orphan and then like New Origins or whatever the prequel was called.
Oh, yeah, the movie.
Because basically, spoiler alert, everybody.
What they were trying to say Natalia Grace was doing.
Exactly. Yeah, because basically, like, it implies that the family had to be so insane to either believe that this is really the kid Nicholas, or they had nefarious reasons for pretending that it was him, i.e., someone in the family killed him.
Right.
And they know that the kid died under crazy circumstances. Like, because it's like he's from San Antonio. And he was born and raised in America most of his life. He was only gone for 3 years. This kid comes back, and it's like Milli Vanilli. Like, you can't speak anything without an accent, but your songs are like all English. Like, what's going on here?
I was born in San Antonio. So I was raised in Baytown, Texas, but I was born in San Antonio. And so I'm like, oh, this is my home. My grandmother lived there until she passed away. And so, I know San Antonio pretty well. And then, so yeah, when this guy, the guy who's the imposter, well, then it is at the end when you realize who's the imposter and what's the imposter situation here, because of what you talked about, the nefarious reasons.
I think I realized immediately.
We know that the guy, and I was like, well, as far as the documentary goes, and being a true crime podcaster, and I when I do my episodes, they're very documentary style episodes. So I'm telling the story. I was like, well, why are they giving it away who the imposter is so quickly? Right. And so they're just jumping right into, there's no mystery behind it. We know that this guy is faking it from the beginning.
And
And so
he's proudly talking about it. He's got an evil smile whenever they mention that code,
Yeah.
the
don't.
alias Jonathan Dorian. It cuts back to him, and he's like, he used his front for so many.
He was so proud of himself when he was telling all the things that he was doing. Like he was so proud of like how he's going through and like classic con artist, just classic.
Well, what kind of shelter was he living in where he was able to dye his hair? First of all, they let him in a room by himself where he had access
Right.
to like records and shit. He was literally, so folks, he literally was like found, like he was found in Spain. They took him to like a shelter and basically were like, apparently in Spain, they get really angry if they like, find just stray children on the streets, unhoused children,
Yeah.
right? So they're like,
Right.
he's like, I'm from America because he's just trying, like, he's 23, right?
24.
23,
23,
23
Yep.
when they track him down. He's wanted by Liverpool. He has a long rap sheet. So he's basically like, I got to cover my ass so they don't figure out who I really am right now. So he did all these things to make it seem like he's a wounded child who's like scared
It's his
and then,
MO.
yeah. And then they basically like let him have the whole night to call America. And he just calls police departments asking about missing children.
It is
Their phone bill must be nuts. Their phone bill
exactly
must be
the
nuts.
90s. This is the 90s. We didn't have cell phones. It's like you had to like dial the one and you had to go through all the things. And he's calling from Spain, all these places. He called New York, he called Chicago, he called LA, he called all these big cities and all these different police officers and police departments, and just to get them to like, well, here, this is the boy I have, and he's pretending to be the detective talking about the boy that he's going to end up pretending to be.
Yeah. And it was so funny. I think even he said, not Nicholas, what's Frederick.
Yeah,
He even says
Frederick.
at one point, the only commonality I had with Nicholas was that we each have 5 fingers in each hand.
Yes.
He was like, he said the only thing we had.
Well,
Well,
I
and
mean, so basically, he's just saying like these people are stupid. Like these
yeah,
people are stupid. Like this is wild that I was able to get away with this, and he's openly telling you, and you're just like, okay, so then whose side am I on in this?
exactly. When he's saying it, he's like basically saying what we were already thinking. Or like, how did these people think for 1 second, this is my brother, this is my son? He looks nothing like him. I mean, and
Yeah.
and me as a girl, I was like, how did he get such a good hair, dyeing his hair blonde when it's like super dark? I'm like, I know what that takes to get that, to keep that. And I'm like, how did he do that with some box hair dye somewhere?
Yo, he was able to get his hair dyed, and he was able, like, he found out that Nicholas had 3 tattoos because apparently the
Tattoos.
kid was a bit rough around the edges. So he got someone to do the tattoos for him. Like, he did the work. I will give him that. Like, he actually, like, to Justin's point, I was kind of like, I mean, he hustled his way to America. I can't get
He
too
did.
mad at that.
But
He
at the
did.
same time, Brandon, he did show up like Michael Jackson on his way to court. Like, with the wrap around, he had the glasses on, like,
And he was dancing.
yeah,
He was
like,
dancing
I was
in the
like,
prison.
what is happening right now? Like, that was nuts.
And
That was
then he,
if somebody I knew came off of a plane dressed like that, I'd be like, take Miss Doubtfire and send her ass right back home. When she put the pie on her face, hello, like he looked nuts.
he comes in, he's like he's got the hat, he's got like some like the thing over his face. Mom, you can tell, they showed the little clip of that was filmed like back in the 90s, and the mom's kind of like you could tell that she might consider the fact that this is not him. She seems weirded out by it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
100%.
guys thought the same thing, but she had to be, right? But then, the sister goes out there, and then so he says later that she was stepping him through learning who everyone was.
Yeah, he,
Yeah.
he said that her going through the photos, like, because she immediately like doesn't even think twice. She's just like, "You're my brother. Oh my God, look at all these photos." He said her walking him through briefly through that memory lane is what helped him pass that test. That the investigator or someone from the woman from the FBI or whatever who came.
The
Okay, before I
FBI
get
lady.
to my logistical questions, yeah, before we get to my logistical questions about how the sister even afforded a trip to Spain, Jen, I gotta ask, what made you want to talk about this movie? Was it the San Antonio connection or the true crime connection? Like, what was it about that drew you?
Both for
We gotta know.
okay, so this season of my podcast, I do things by season. This season, I'm doing the Houston mass murders, and that is a case about the Candyman Dean Coral. I don't know if you guys have heard about who this is, the serial killer.
Name
He
sounds
is
Oh
familiar.
no.
he is
Well, she's a
basically
candy man.
the Candyman. He is basically Houston's own John Wayne Gacy. He was responsible with two teenage accomplices for murdering 29 young boys and men. So when I initially went into the season, I really wanted to concentrate on missing boys and boys that were sold into sex trafficking. So that's, part of what he was saying was like, they kidnapped me, they sex trafficked me, they abused me, the government was in on it. Like he went on this whole story. So
And he said that that's how his eye color changed because he was tortured in the eyes.
right, because
That's what
this guy, this dark-haired, dark-eyed, the FBI agent talked about his beard that was coming in that was dark. He's trying to pass himself off as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, very light-skinned boy,
Yeah, he looked
and
like fucking Hulk Hogan.
right, right, like he would have been a host for sure. It would be like me trying to be Paris Hilton. Like it's that night and day. And so with my season and the real, and so this is the thing is things like that, it just, it distracts you away from like the fact that there's a real epidemic of missing kids and things like that. And that's what the episode's about. So all I knew was there's a missing boy in San Antonio and then a guy claiming to be him. That's basically what I knew about it. So I wanted to know more about the missing persons case, and that would be like a whole other side of this. Like the story is the imposter, so the story is this guy doing this, but what happened to the boy?
Yeah, and that's still open ended. I mean, like it's very much hinted that the family knows something, and that the scapegoat is the brother that passed away from a drug overdose. So
Right.
the sister's very defensive, like of course he's a scapegoat for what could have happened or whatever. But like that kind of takes us to the Charlie Parker private investigator dude. As soon as he popped up, I was like, oh,
Here we go.
Frederick, your goose is cooked. Because the way that guy just talked, he's like, I'm Charlie Parker. I was like, oh shit,
There
Charlie's
we
in
go.
it.
Charlie
And
If
then,
he's
like,
got an accent, he's
when he-
on it.
Exactly. And when they were doing the news story, and he was looking at, they said they kept showing the picture of the original Nicholas, and they were showing Frederick on the screen. He said the ears are different, and then he literally says, "People aren't used to you questioning someone's ears." I was like,
They were like, yeah, that's what put them off. They were like, they're just not used to questioning about ears. But the minute he came up, it's like, that's who I want to be, is that guy, because that guy is just about to break everything wide open, right? And that's what changed the tone of the documentary too, because we already know like this is happening. We know how is this dude who we all see is obvious, right? But how is he going to actually get caught? How is he actually going to get exposed? And it was all Mr. Parker that came in and talked about the ears.
So my thing about this is, Jen, do you have any children?
Yes, I have two bonus kids, a 23-year-old and a 19-year-old.
Okay. So you have children. Let's say, God forbid, one of your children goes missing, right? And then 3 years later, you get this thing. Hey, they're alive and well. They're coming home on this plane,
you
right?
get a call from Spain.
I already know where you're going with this. Okay, yep.
I have three boys. I have three little boys. I have a 6, a 3.5, and a 10-month-old. Now, I imagine you as a mother, even more as a mother so than even me, but I would know that for sure is not
100%.
my child.
100%.
No, 1,000%, 1,000%.
1,000%.
But also, if I'm walking to the airport and I see a person masquerading as my child, the first thing I'm doing is Spartan kicking them in the chest right back down the jetway. There is absolutely no way I'm going to entertain it, even for a second. So that's why I look at it and was like, there has to be something going on with this family.
There has to be. There
There has.
let me try to give them the benefit of the doubt and be like, they're so,
Yeah.
deep in their grief. They're so like, I'm willing to look past anything to believe something, but it just doesn't. And then, the sister, I really want to believe her because she really does seem like, she's still affected by this and everything. So, but it just doesn't track. It just doesn't track.
No, no.
This guy, I mean, he
They
really
didn't ask enough
nothing.
questions.
They didn't ask enough, but then the accent. The accent.
Yes.
Well, that was crazy. Yeah, the sister was like, yeah, he was very quiet and spoke with a funny accent and all this stuff. And he tried to cover it by saying basically he got beat every time he spoke in English, and so he adapted, and that's why he has this. But I'm like, all right, Tommy Wiseau,
Yeah.
you are not an American-born person, right? Like, and the fact. I mean, what's wild about it is like the fact that he kept kind of like getting through. So like of course his ego's gonna get bigger. He's gonna be like, all right, I guess I can keep this up. And then the family's kind of entertaining it. Like the mom is like also getting weird when the investigators are coming by and trying to get clarification. She's being cagey now. So he immediately was like, oh, so they have secrets to hold too. Like I said, it's like Orphan. It's the Orphan
Yeah.
movie because when what's her name finds out, Julia Stiles is over here, killed her own daughter. She's like, oh, the son killed the daughter. That's the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? That was the
Yeah.
plot twist. Jen, did you see Orphan?
Yes.
The prequel one.
The first one, or oh no, that would be the second one, right?
So
Or-
there's the second.
yeah, that
so
was the
there's
second one.
Orphan, and then Orphan 2 or whatever the fuck it's called.
Right.
But
Orphan
it actually is the
Origins.
prequel. It's about it's about her actually coming to America and like her first family. So if I could spoil it for you, if that's okay,
No,
right?
please.
Like, so she gets adopted. She comes to America. The first family she gets adopted by is Julia Stiles, and I forgot who plays her husband. And they have a son, and they're basically like, "Oh, we found Esther, whoever, right? We found your daughter because their daughter went missing." It turns out that the son. Oh, thank you. You be orphan first kill. Turns out that the son had killed the daughter by not by accident, but he killed her. They buried the body, and so when she pops up, they're all like, "That's clearly not her." So
Right.
then it's like this cat and mouse game between her and Julia Stiles. It's like really good, but it's
Okay.
like that's why I thought about this whole documentary. I'm like, oh shit! Like I was expecting someone to get killed.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
And if
and
it
so
were me, it would have been that kid at the airport. Go on.
um, it has to be some sort of cover up. It does. It just tracks. It just like he came in, and his biggest mistake was he went on TV and he wanted to get like all of this recognition, and so he's going and doing all these interviews. I'm like, if you just would have kept your mouth shut, you would have had the passport. You were like, okay, mom and dad, I'm off to go see America, and you could have just left and gone and been this
Yep.
guy and done whatever. Nobody would have even given it a second thought. But he had to go on TV and he had to get it all, his ego had to be stroked. And this is what happened. And then, Mr. Parker comes in and sees the ears.
I mean, we're also lucky too. Like, I mean, we didn't learn enough about like what his social life was like when he took over Nicholas's identity. Like, he talks about like, oh, when the yellow school bus came and took me, I was like, oh, I really made it in America. Mind
Then
you,
he
this
liked
guy
the
is
girl.
23.
He also liked a girl. They were like, oh, yeah, he started liking this girl. I was like, how old is this girl? Because he's 23.
Yeah, yeah.
So my mom came out there.
When you
and I was
say
like,
teenage,
"Who is this
how
girl?"
old are we talking?
Girls who are teenagers.
I got 19-year-old friends.
I'm just saying, it was so unsettling, and it felt like the brother-in-law knew. Like the brother-in-law was like, you ain't Nicholas.
The one that said good luck, he said good luck to him. He goes, all right, good luck.
Well, what was it when Charlie Parker confronts him? He's finally he's like, this is my family, you know it. And he was like, oh shit.
Here we go. And so, okay, so he tells me, but he, and let me make sure I have this right. He was the one that perpetuated that. He said that the mom told him that her other son killed him, and so he's the one
Yes.
that kicked that off.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. He threw her under he threw her under the bus to supposedly deflect. I think there's some truth in everything. I think there's truth in both of their
100%.
stories. You know, I think that she didn't confess to him anything, but for sure she's covering. He probably observed some stuff because I'm sure there had to be some whispered conversations where people are like, we can't fully pretend that it like, I think you're right, Jen. I think maybe the sister might have been out of the loop. I
Right.
think the sister maybe like is in the dark about some stuff, but even
But
then, like,
how can you be
exactly,
that
that's
far, into the woods like
well,
that?
they didn't talk about was the sister at home when he disappeared because they talked about the brother. Remember, the brother was supposed to. So I guess Nicholas would wander off and like he would get in fights and run away occasionally. And he called. He was miles away from home. He called the brother, say, "Hey, can someone pick me up?" The brother's like, "Mom worked all day. I'm gonna wake her up, so you got to find a way home." And then he never came home.
Right.
And
Right.
so the sister wasn't mentioned. So I wonder if the sister's old enough where she wasn't at home anymore. So she was far enough removed and maybe too much older where she saw Nicholas sporadically. It wasn't like
Right.
she grew up, like, he grew up with her and she was like connected with him on that level.
She had
You
a
know what I
baby
mean?
by that point too, because I think his little nephew
Yes.
was already born. So yeah, she could have
So
been removed from it.
And that might have been why they sent her to be like, to make it legit. They might have been like, if
Right.
we send her, she could have a genuine reaction to him. Like, because they were like, they said the mom was too tired. She couldn't handle the trip.
She couldn't
Which,
handle the
yeah.
right.
which the flight from from San Antonio to Spain was probably what, 8 hours?
8 hours.
No,
Maybe.
probably about like 10. Probably like 10 because
Okay,
there's going
but
to be
still.
a layover. And it's because like from New York to San Antonio is probably like a 6-hour flight. And then the
But wouldn't you think a mom would want to be
6.
the first person there to see her
100%.
child?
True.
Go
Yes,
through
100%.
whatever. Like,
But
I'll take the flight to the moon if my kid's up there and I need to go get them.
But can I just offer just a way that we could have easily rectified the situation here? And I know this is going to sound crazy, guys. I know it's going to sound crazy, but surefire. You know what they really don't do in a lot of different parts of Europe? Circumcisions. That kid was born in Texas.
Yep.
All they had to do was just like, I got to see that dick.
Yep.
Because that kid has foreskin. For sure it's not him. For
Right.
sure it's not him. And if he's like an orphan, things like that, 9 out of 10, he's most likely not circumcised. He's most likely uncircumcised. And in certain parts of Europe, circumcision is seen as body mutilization, so they don't do it at all. So 9 out of 10, he probably is uncircumcised. And a kid from Texas, San Antonio, Texas, is
100%.
probably 9 out of 10 definitely circumcised.
Right.
Easy fix right there.
Done.
How did the sister afford to go to Spain?
He's just like,
I
I
don't
don't
mean to
even want
be
to talk
rude.
about that.
I don't mean to be rude. And I get your point, Justin, but I don't mean to be like, because it was like, you see these
Same.
confessionals, and apparently the family didn't really even want to be involved with the documentary. They got convinced that they were going to look completely incompetent, right?
Oh, yeah, of
but
course.
the sister, I mean, not saying that they live in squalor, but I was just like, it's 1997, and she's flying last minute to Spain to
Right.
travel to whatever shelter consulate she has to go to, and then fly back with another person
Right.
after getting all the documentation he needs in 1997. Like, that seemed like a very expensive endeavor to me. That's all I just want to throw out there.
I would say I would think especially in certain communities, people will be like, wait, you're going to go get your son? Hey, church, let's all get together, let's collect money. We're going to send them over there and they're going to bring our boy home. Probably, I would say it was kind of like a crowdfunding thing, way before, but probably
Even better
through
cover,
church and community.
even better
Yeah.
cover for the crime too.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to see what part of San Antonio, like, because I know where my family lived and where my grandmother lived, and I kind of want to see where was it. And then so he walked to the basketball because he went to go play basketball with friends. So he walked there, and then supposedly on the way back is when he got abducted, right?
Yeah, because the mom said, "Oh, I can see him get into a car with a stranger." I was like, "So you raised your kid just to be willy nilly?" Like, hey, that was crazy.
I'm just glad that in no point, way, shape, or form was the good name of the wonderful establishment of Whataburger sullied throughout this entire thing, because I love that place and I would be very upset if they brought negative light to Whataburger. Just saying, that's my Texas spot, and how dare somebody say anything negative about Whataburger?
Born and raised Texas, and absolutely do not talk about our Whataburger.
Yep.
So,
So
Jen, was this a big story? Like in
I don't
like
remember it at all back
Okay.
then. Like back, and I graduated from high school in '94. So, I don't remember it.
yeah.
I mean, I was a teenager, so it's completely self-absorbed, but I don't, but then, we didn't have all the true crime stuff we have now. Like if this
Yeah.
is now, it would be all over YouTube. It'd be all over everything. People, I mean, this little blonde hair, blue eyed boy goes missing. Like people
Oh
would
yeah.
be throwing parades about it. And, it would,
Yeah.
everyone would know. They would Gabby Petito the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Well, that was what's so interesting is because apparently according to Lluvia, our producer's research, the disappearance of Nicholas Barkley didn't even make the local news. He wasn't reported missing for 3 days, and because he had run away in the past and had a juvenile court hearing coming up to decide if he would be sent to a juvenile facility, the police assumed initially that he had run away again. A few weeks later, the police began investigating and discovered that he hadn't taken any money or possessions. So we should actually, ooh, Jenny, you're true crime detective. You should try to find out what he was going to potentially go away to juvenile detention for. Because if he was potentially going to rat out somebody in the family, i.e., his older brother, that might have
Oh,
been what got him.
what is the
Mm.
motive? And so at
Yeah,
the end of the day, that is the case. What happened to this kid? What happened to this kid? Did his family kill him? And if they didn't, what the hell happened to him? And doing this case that I'm doing now at the Houston mass murders, this was between 70 and 73. These boys were from the Houston Heights. Back then, it was not a well-to-do area like it is now. Now it's $750,000 bungalows, but back then it was a rundown part of town, and these boys were going
Yeah.
missing, and police didn't do anything. The parents were reporting them missing. Police they just ran away, or they whatever. And these are 13, 14-year-old boys, 15, like the being flippant about a kid going missing, no matter where they're from, or like that's just mind-boggling to me. And so
Yeah.
seeing it now in 1994, when you think like, oh, we've come a long way since 73. 1994, this kid, how old? He was 13, right? 13 years old when he went
13.
missing.
13.
Yeah, that's a baby. And this kid goes
Yeah.
missing, and no one talks about it. And still,
well,
you
it
even
sounded like
have
he
this
was a
like,
problem kid. It sounded like
yeah,
they were maybe like he wasn't the nicest kid,
100% problem
Yeah.
kid. Yeah,
like the Nelson
and
Muntz of your town going missing.
I mean, how many 13-year-old kids have tattoos? I'm just saying.
I know
That's kind of
that's
wild.
even the '90s. That's wild. That's
even
pre
in
Eminem and
these,
shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we haven't even talked about the craziest part about this whole documentary. And there's a lot of crazy shit. But for
The
me,
fact
the
that this
part
kid
that
resurfaced at a Diddy party, go on.
Oh,
Jesus. No, but for me, it
we're gonna start
was
there.
he was in jail. He's in jail, and he has a phone in his prison cell where
What
he
is
is
that
calling
about? Oh,
families of missing children and saying, "I know info about your missing child, including a baby."
they
Like,
allowed
what the
that.
fuck? What is
What
going
is
on
that
again?
shit? And then Connie Chung's in there, and she's like, "What? What? What?"
She's like,
And
"Where's
she's
your
doing like
money?"
all of us were like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, did the police just allow? And it looked like a payphone sort of setup too. It was like in there in the middle of his cell, and it's just And he had a phone book, and he was just calling around.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in my life.
It was like an episode of Crank Yankers. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
He's literally looks like a puppet, too.
Yeah, he does. And that hair at the end there, like when they were showing him
Yeah.
dancing.
Oh, he looked creepy when they were like
Oh,
shuffling him out with the handcuffs and stuff, and he's
oh,
smiling at
he
the
had that
camera.
mullet, and he was doing his little stuff, and yeah.
Yeah.
They
And
were
then,
like,
and then
"That's
it's
Nicholas."
he's married with 3 kids, and I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, like, oh
According to
no,
Wikipedia, his wife has left him as of 2017.
oh well,
No. I'm so sorry for him. I wonder what
yeah,
happens.
I mean, that's so crazy though, because when you look at pictures of Nicholas and then you look at this kid, even like when I mean, he was 23, not 16. So you're like, he's a grown ass man. He's got a deep beard shadow,
yeah,
and he doesn't look anything like your kid, even if it's been
nothing,
3 years. Come on
Yeah.
now.
nothing. No, it's like Macaulay Culkin went missing, and then Pedro Pascal comes in and be like, "It's me." It doesn't work. Like it's that far. Like it's blonde hair, blue eyes. This dude, this French guy, is super dark hair, super dark eyes. It just, uh, I was just in shock that he even got away with it as long as
And
he
his
did.
accent is
They
palpable
accent.
too.
Yeah.
That's what's wild.
Yes. Yes. The guy sounded like a really trashy French movie. Like a really trashy French movie that never made it to the United States, and you had to find it like at a library somewhere. Like
I
that's
do
what this
think
guy was giving me.
I do think he could have gotten away with it if he had been able to pull off an American accent. I think between him impersonating like a law enforcement officer and things like that, clearly is a good con artist. I think if he could have finessed having an American accent of some sort, he probably could have gotten away with it at least till he was of legal. I don't know, like he made like because he was given a passport, but so did he actually get citizenship? But or was it just under the? I'm so confused about how that worked out.
Yeah. Did they? I
Does
mean,
he
they're just
technically
like,
have
oh,
citizenship?
you're Nicholas, so you don't have to earn anything. It's just here's to
Because they legally
replace your documents or something. Or
Yeah, because they legally gave him that name. They gave him that he
Yes.
assumed that identity on a legal basis. Like that's what they did
Yes.
before they even let him go to America.
Yeah,
So
but at the same time, upon finding out that that he's not Nicholas, that that identity would then be stricken from him, and then Nicholas would probably be assumed dead. So then, like, no, then his status would be revoked.
well, yeah, because he got deported. But I was
Yeah.
just curious, like, is there a legal argument for him to be able to keep the name?
No,
no,
because
I guess, I mean,
it's all through fraud.
They took it away. Yeah. I would assume they take it away and they sent him back. And he served time here, right? He served time here, and then I guess when he was done, they extradited him back over to wherever, France, I guess.
They just sent him back to France. Yeah,
Yep.
even though he was in Spain, and again he was being trapped by Liverpool, and that's what Charlie Parker was like. He was like, when I found out he was being he
By
was being
them, he's
hunted by them, I was like, golly.
so, like, what's the highest of the high that you could get in being in trouble? And what was crazy is when they went through all the different identities that he stole, and they were listing them all out and highlighting all the names in all the different areas. I mean, when he did this thing with Nicholas, like we would assume that's the last time he did it, even though I think they said he tried to do it again, pass off as a 14-year-old. But all of those were before the age of 23. So how long has he been doing this? How many times? Like, props.
It was mind-boggling.
Props to him. Like, that's pretty.
I know that. Well, that's what was so impressive is like he clearly had been doing it before, because for him to like be in that intense situation where they're like, okay, you say you're American, tell us who whose family you're a part of, blah blah blah. Like call them and we'll figure it out. And he used the overnight to call America and basically track down like who can I pull off in a short amount of time and be somewhat convincing. Who could I do?
This is before the internet too. Again,
that's so crazy.
Before the internet.
I mean, the things that you could do before the internet, that there's no way you could pull it off now. Like, you can't disappear. Like, you couldn't fake doing this. You couldn't fake you could totally fake your background. Like, yeah, I went to this school and I have this kind of experience. And now you can check everything.
Well, that's what the FBI investigator was saying, right? They wanted to question him as soon as possible because they were worried that he might flee.
Right.
Which he definitely, I am surprised he didn't. I think he was just so into the media attention. That's why he stuck around. But if I were him, once I got to America, I would have flipped, like gone to Cali or maybe Northeast or something.
The moment I was given, that like, oh, I got my citizenship. Oh, I'm the same. Bye. Gone. Into the
disappear again.
He could have just done it and then assumed another identity and just bopped around America doing that. And found someone that he even looked more like and just like pull it off for the rest of your life.
Also, it would have made sense. It would have been a pattern for Nicholas if he had disappeared again.
Yeah. True.
Like, it's like, I think he just got so wrapped up in the attention. Yeah.
What did you guys think of the FBI lady? The FBI, when Mr. Parker calls her and she's like, I need to remind you that you're getting yourself involved in an FBI investigation. I was like, she's all over the place.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Charlie Parker, as much as I enjoyed him popping up on my screen and like, we see him later on trying to do a True Detective, like I'm like old and retired, but I'm still trying to crack this case thing. He gave me did you ever watch Telemarketers, Jen? The
Yes.
docuseries. He
Yes.
gave me Patrick
Yes.
Pespaz vibes, like where he's so crazy, like but most of what he says is true. It's just that he has such a quirky personality. You don't want
Right.
to take him serious, like you don't take him seriously, but it was like yeah, like he's telling you like this isn't that guy. Like just look at him.
Yeah.
Like there's certain physical attributes that just do not line up.
So
Right.
I mean, so this is the thing. I feel like, and to answer your question about like that the FBI a woman, we
Her name.
have
We gotta stop calling her FBI.
no, because what she did was ridiculous. So we might as well just call her FBI
Yes.
lady. She don't want her name on this. She don't want her name on this. I think that
Nancy Fisher, I think.
so
Nancy
Miss Nancy Fisher.
I think so.
FBI.
I feel like depending on especially if you have a label, you work for the FBI, you work for this police department, things like that. They never want to show that they did something wrong or they slipped up, right? So instead of actually fixing the problem and being like, hey, you know what? Yeah, there's something going on here. They'd rather just cover it up because they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. Because part of our great system is making people think that we are infallible and we never make mistakes. But that is our biggest issue, and that's how people fall through the cracks. I mean, because we talked about it on the podcast before. Way back in the day, someone stole my identity, and it was a shithole. A shit show. It like completely just upended my life and things like that. But part of the reason why it took so long is because I went to the police department and they're just like, that's not what's going on. I'm like, yes, it is what's going on. I'm the guy. I'm right here. I'm telling you what's going on. And they're just like, no, you wouldn't. That wouldn't happen. You gave your girlfriend that car. I'm like, no. So like, it's just the fact that people don't want to admit that they've actually made a mistake or like the thing that they thought to be true could even fathom it to be else because it's going to make them look bad. And then that's how the crazy stories like this happen because people are just, they're just dickheads. They're just dickheads who just can't say, you know what? You may be right. That's all it is.
Yeah, I missed it. That's what I've noticed going over cold cases, and my season 2 cold case is, there were corrupt police officers involved in it, and a lot of like, no, that would never happen. I'm like, oh my god, like, yes, like look at the fingerprints all over this. Like this is, and a lot was missed, and my dad was one of the investigators on the case back then, and fortunately, as he's gone through, he's like, well, you're right, young lady, like. Accepting like okay, but all of them like accepting the fact that hey, you missed something, hey, you messed up, hey, we need to go back, and then instead of saying hey, let me learn from this, let me get better at this, let me develop a better system, that is why we're so stuck. That's why we're so stuck in a justice system that is just it's so fallible, and it's just here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to that, Jen. So, did your father, by any chance, watch this documentary?
No, well, I don't think he has. I'm going to make him watch it though because I feel like he can,
Yeah, I'd be
he'd
really
enjoy
curious to know
it.
his thoughts of like where the holes are, like based on what he's being presented. Like, is like whether it's inconsistencies with the family story, with the FBI story, or obviously Frederick is all over the fucking place, so it'd be hard to kind of suss
He
out.
grew
But I'd
up
just be
in San
curious.
Antonio, so it would be interesting. That's where my dad grew up, and I would love his take on it. And part of the reason that I'm on here doing this with you guys is he and I are going to be on Hulu, on
Nice.
Texas True Crime, the series,
Awesome.
and it's going to be a case that was one of his cases back in 1985, and it was a missing girl, and it was a missing girl who ended up. They ended up finding her body. She was murdered. And so, but we talk about this case because it's a wild case, and who ended up doing it is just, it blows your mind. And so that's what it looks like. They were going to release it this month. I just talked to the producer. They're going to be, their 40th anniversary for ABC is coming up in September. So that's when they're going to put it out. And they're going to put out their new season for Texas True Crime. So
Got it.
definitely stay tuned
Awesome.
for that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Congrats on that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, given his experience, I wonder, like, Yuvia pointed out in our chat that the mom maybe was on drugs. I think they hinted at maybe some alcoholism and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like weird family dynamics where I wonder if, like, given his past experience with cases and stuff, if he might be able to say like, oh, this could potentially be the motive for why Nicholas disappeared. Like, I mean, obviously we're leaning more into like the theory that maybe the family was about.
That's
It
up
is
to
possible he just got snatched up, unfortunately, and was abducted, and we don't know what happened, right?
Messed with
But
the wrong
given
Or
that
the
the
one.
fact that he
mom,
was about to go to prison.
yeah,
And he
but given that he was
bounced.
about to go to juvenile,
Yeah.
mom failed the polygraph test, right?
She passed it
And
twice and then failed it. It was like passed it, and then failed everything. And then it was like, that's weird. And then
well,
she
because they
said,
were asking her different questions, right? Were
right.
they asking her different questions, maybe
That's what
that were
she
more
said.
pointed?
She said
Yeah.
that I failed it because I didn't want to talk about my past. I guess she's stolen some things in the past or something and she lied about it, is what she said.
Yeah.
But it's hard to believe anybody in this case. Like, I can't, we can't believe the imposter first and foremost. And then the family, there's so many, you know, they're their own types of imposters if they're trying to cover up this thing that happened, that possibly happened. And then you've got the investigators digging up their backyard to see if the boy's body was back there, and they didn't find anything. And then at the very end, they said that they closed the case. So the case is closed. Why would they close
to
it
lack
if
of
it's not
evidence.
solved? Yeah, lack of evidence.
It-
I mean, I have a case now, the case that I did for season 2, they won't close it. They won't close it because, and they still have ever, all the dead ends, they declared it cold, but they refuse to close it. I personally think it's because that way I can't get the documents that I need. But, when they keep it open, that means like, oh, we're going to make sure, nobody else can work on it as long as it's open. But the minute we close it, then
Yep.
there you go. You can have access to all the records.
And then
Um,
someone's gonna show them the task is like, hey, you did not work this case correctly, which again goes back to the fact is it's an ego. It's an ego thing. Yep.
Yep.
Molly, you in danger, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Well, that's what. Well, that actually, okay. Let's say hypothetically it's not the family, but I do think it's possible that maybe the brother or somebody knows who did it, or like they have so much guilt that that's why, like, the brother maybe got like involved, like higher use of drugs and stuff. Like, there's just definitely some like unanswered questions that make you think about like nefarious, behavior and things like that, because the brother's like, hey, find a way home, right? And then your brother never comes home. So it's either you're gonna ask around your friends, like, hey, did anyone see Nicholas? That, like, blah blah blah. Like, it sounded like
Right.
it's not like it wasn't like that crazy of a town where like no one talked to each other, or things are so sprawled out. Like if you're in bumfuck Ohio or something like that, where no one's gonna see anything. Like, the kid was well known because he had like a lot of issues, right?
Mhm.
The people obviously knew the family, so like the family had roots in San Antonio. So it's kind of like this kid just disappeared into thin air. Like, I don't know.
Right. Right. And yeah, and yeah, you think of what you would do, like, what am I, like, my kid doesn't show up, my kid goes somewhere and they don't come back, and it gets later and later, and you go through the steps of what, I mean, this is 94, this is not 1955, or, this is 1994.
Yeah.
We had, phones, we've all, like, some people even had cell phones back then, but, you have ways of contacting people. This is, when I'm reading it for the Houston mass murders case in 70 and 73, I'm like, well, 70, 73, like, these houses didn't have telephones, like some of them, because it was that kind of neighborhood, no AC, no nothing, right? But yeah, you start to call around, hey, I haven't seen Nicholas, where was the last time you saw him? Oh, you saw him at so-and-so. And then you go to their houses, like if they're in the neighborhood. And that's why I was wondering, what neighborhood is this? Were there any other missing boys at that time that anyone talked about? Because that's what was going on in Houston. I mean, on a very extreme end, what if there was a predator out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that I think that goes to the intention of the director Bart Layton, because I think if there were, to your point, Jen, other cases of missing boys or children in San Antonio at the time, they should have talked about that in a documentary. It might have made it less
Right.
salacious because of, like,
Salacious.
that dilutes the whole family did it
Right.
aspect. But at the same time, like, you have to be truthful to the time period. If that was happening, that's important to know.
Right.
But because they didn't say it and the investigators didn't mention it, I'm guessing it was kind of scarce at the time, or at least
Or at least in
maybe.
that area, or at
Yeah.
least in that area. Because I mean, we all remember as kids, the kids on the back of the milk box, and I mean the milk carton
Yeah.
and things and all that kind of stuff. So like there was a problem where kids were going missing or running away from home and never coming back and all that kind of stuff. But like again, like that's all regional to your area. And those milk boxes and things like that. So like it was just, I don't know. It's a very interesting case here, because there should have been more signs that pointed to, like, maybe something's going on here, or something that, I can't understand how this happened, and I'm even stepping away from the weird guy coming from France and assuming the identity of an American boy. Like, that's
Remember,
crazy.
he didn't come from France. Again, he came from Spain and talked like
Yeah,
that.
but
Like,
he-
no one was confused.
You know what? We're going to wrestling. Origins unknown. you know?
It's unknown.
I don't
You
get it,
know,
but
the thing is the case was not properly investigated, right?
Yeah.
Like they just did it. I mean, did they look into the family? If they did, now, and this is, going back to the documentary, they brought it up. Is there any evidence at all besides the word of this imposter con artist saying so? Was there any sort of anything with the family? Like any evidence, any word of mouth that somebody
True.
knew something? And I mean, to me, it just seemed like he's the one that said it. The imposter is the one that said it. And then they went on that. And I'm like, did they? The movie was called The Imposter, so they centered everything. I mean, it is about him and what he did. So maybe that's why. But it's still kind of, I would like to know the police version of this, and I would like to know the investigators' version of this. And like, what did you do to look into this case about this boy? What, do you guys know the Amber Alert story, like where they got the Amber Alert from? And I think
Yeah.
that was in the 90s that this girl went
Mm-hmm.
missing and she, ended up, being killed. But this was 96. So that was 2 years after Nicholas Barkley went missing, before the imposter came in 97. So, 13-year-old boy. What did you guys do?
Yep. Our producer Lluvia pulled up some letterbox reviews, which she thought we should read on the show. The first one is Ronnie Belt, who wrote, "I don't think I will ever trust anyone ever again. Thank you, movie. 4 out of 5 stars."
I mean,
Especially
Zara
if they
wrote,
got
"Trust
the mask
yourself."
on the face and the hat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zara wrote, "The most
So if
extreme
you
thing I've
don't
ever
like that.
pretended to." Oh, sorry, Jen. What'd you say?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's not going to be as funny because I hear you saying this review, and I'm like, I thought of, like, when I was a kid, I used to pretend I had a twin, and so I would be like, no, and I don't even remember the name I made up, and I did this for a while, and I would say, no, I'm not Jennifer, I'm my twin, and so I used to do that for fun as a kid. So that was the biggest thing, like imposter thing that I've done ever as a kid. So I'm interested to hear what this reviewer.
Zara wrote, "The most extreme thing I've ever pretended to be is funny. 4 out of 5 stars. That's sad." Deron wrote, "I don't want to say much about this documentary because it's best you go in blind, but fuck me, what a messed up story this is. It is one of the most intriguing documentaries I've seen in a while, and well worth seeing. 4 out of 5 stars." And then Sick Robots wrote, "You can say what you want about Frederick Burden, but that guy has some sweet Michael Jackson moves. 4.5 out of 5 stars." And then Omar, with an exclamation
He
mark,
did.
wrote, "This documentary is so unbelievable that if it's made into a movie, people would complain that the story is unrealistic." 3.5 out of 5 stars. So, having
Fair.
shared all that, Justin, break down our rating system, baby.
So call me Baby Brennan. Guys, you know how we do this. We rate movies bags of popcorn, small, medium, large, and the XL for the exceptional. Now, if a film or documentary in this case doesn't deserve any hot, buttery, delicious popcorn, we throw it into the stale popcorn pile. We pile piles and piles of stale popcorn on top of it. So, Jen, we sat down, we watched the 2012 documentary film, The Imposter. Wild story, but tell me, what will you rate this?
As far as the documentary goes, and I'll say with it coming out in 2012, it stands up to a lot of true crime documentaries that are out now.
Yeah.
But as far as the story goes, and as far as the in-depth, how deep they went in with it, I'm just gonna give it what's above medium, but not quite big. Medium plus, medium with like a side of nut.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
You know, side nachos.
Okay. All right, Brandon.
Yeah, this gets a large. This is a fun surprise. I mean, it's not a fun subject matter, but it was in like the story blew my mind. I was like, whoa, I was not expecting this. And the fact that like everyone just kind of was going with it, and he kept saying like Frederick was just like, it kept working. It was just like, yeah, that's insane. Like, I get it. You made it to America, man. I honestly think he kind of deserved to be here. Like, because he hustled his way from
American than what he
Spain.
did.
Yeah.
That was fucking a hustle. I wouldn't have done all that. That's insane.
Yeah.
So, I always, and Justin and I, we do a lot of documentaries, especially about crimes and like, people with malicious intent. But this is the first one where I was like, kind of like rooting for the guy. Like, he made it. Like, he's not a good dude, but he did make it.
His hustle game's strong for sure.
It's very creepy
indeed.
and like terrible what he's doing to families, but
Let's put
get
this
it where you
guy
fit
in
it.
office.
Oh, boy. All right, Justin, what's your rating?
So, this, Jen, like you said, like this actually does hold up to a lot of like true crime documentaries which have proceeded, which have come out after this, and but the downside of it, I feel like it still left so many questions. You know what I'm saying? Which, even though it's true crime documentary, lots of times they do, but like, we didn't really get into the real crux of like the issue of what happened to this boy, which also at the same time, it makes us want to learn more and maybe opens up more investigations into what happened to the real kid. But at the same time, it was fun as hell to go down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to give it a large as well. But like, it's still like, it bothers me that we don't have any real solid answers about what's happening on actually finding out what happened to this kid. And like you said, they closed the case, and I'm just like, so it's just more just police work that's just not being done, and the family is just left in the lurch unless they, really already know because they killed him.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's our review on The Imposter. You can check it out on Peacock, Amazon Prime, but don't support Amazon if you can avoid it, and several other streamers. Jen, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell the listeners how they can keep up with you and follow your Hulu project.
Yeah, so you can check out my podcast on wherever you get your podcast. It's a Crude Acts, a Texas True Crime podcast. I also titled it Murder in Old Town. It's going through its transformation to become what it's going to become. But you could also check me out on the web, www.crudeacts.com, and then tune in. Just keep an eye out on Hulu. Texas True Crime is the name of the show, of the series. There's already a lot of episodes out. There's even an episode on the Dean Corll and the mass murders that I'm doing right now. So watch that. That's a very interesting case. And so look at it. It's either going to be this month or in September for ABC's 40th anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Anniversary shows. I like it.
Folks, as always, you can follow the show at Medium P Podcast on all social media platforms, mediumpopcorn.com for all your Medium Popcorn needs, youtube.com/Medium Popcorn Podcast. Push that subscribe button so you get alert about all feature reviews and celebrity interviews that we have on the page. And as always, you can follow me at Frodo_Blackens on all social media platforms. I'm on Instagram most of the days, FrodoBlackens.com for show dates, Drunk Black History, and other comedy shows are coming up. And Justin, how can people follow you as well as support the show financially if they choose to do so?
Well, guys, you can follow me at J Brown Did It on all the social media platforms. That's how we do it. But if you really want to be about this podcast, you want to help this podcast grow, go to Patreon, patreon.com/medium popcorn. We have $2, $5, $10, and $15 packages. Our entire backlog is on Patreon. So if you love the show, that's where you can get more of it every day of your life.
Chitty, chitty, bang, bang.
Right.
Jen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll be following all of you and smashing that like button for all of you guys too.
Appreciate it.
it.
And I'm going to be listening to your podcast. I love true crime.
Yes.
I live for
Yeah, we
it.
love it. We love it. And folks, if you know what happened to Nicholas, please let us know.
Yes. Yeah.
Just saying. All right. Talk to y'all soon. Imagine if you called and left us a voicemail.
No. But we need actually Frederick to call and leave us a voicemail.
No, I don't want to talk to that guy.
Come help us out. I
He's-
feel like we could send him to do things for us, like slide him in to like, go undercover for us. He would be great.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. He might have lost his touch by now. But folks, that's Medium Popcorn. We'll talk to y'all next week.
All right,
Peace.
guys. Peace.
Bye.